All right. So welcome everybody today, and thanks for joining with us. I'm going to share my screen with everybody. Hopefully it'll work properly. And just give me a second here. So can you see my, Michael, can you see my screen okay?
Yes. Well, we see all the slides on the side as well. There we go. Perfect.
All right. Now I was going to fix that. So anyway, thank you all for coming today. It's like I said, it's noon Pacific time, and it's 3 p.m. in the east. And most of the folks here are from the left coast. You know, I really envy them. I said that before we started, and I mean, they have much better weather, and it's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. Something I'll tell you about what we're going to talk about today for about 50 minutes or so. It's called Safe Island, and it's a land alliance. And I'll let Michael explain that. Michael Ruge will explain that in a minute. So there are two presenters today. The super handsome guy on the right is me, Bruce Firestone. I do some business coaching and real estate investment coaching. That's kind of what I do these days, but I've done other things too. I've been a hockey guy. I'm the founder of the Ottawa Senators, an NHL team. I built about 2,000 homes and dozens of subdivisions, lots of office buildings and shopping plazas. Probably the biggest project, well, certainly the biggest project I've done was building the Canadian Tire Center where the NHL Ottawa Senators play, which is a 20,000 seat arena. And the very handsome guy on the left is Michael Ruge, and I'm sure everybody knows Michael, but I'm going to let Michael, you introduce yourself. You're the community manager, but I think you should introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. Where do I start with this? You know,
Well,
done real estate development over the years, built an eco community in Belize years ago.
Wow.
And, you know, Southern Vancouver Island has been home for over 20 years, and it's just, in my opinion, the best place in the world to live. Visited 115 countries, lived in a few, and it's got the best of everything. It's not too hot, not too cold, has infrastructure, and that's one of the reasons why we have this acreage on this remote Gulf Island, because within an hour you can get to everything you need. And yet you're away from all the chaos that's going on in the world, whether you just want to retire or whether you want to live, be active. It's just paradise, in my opinion.
All right, so let's go on with the presentation. It won't be too long, guys. And this is something I think that Michael and Alec came up with as a kind of a tagline for what they're doing on Safe Island: prepare for tomorrow and live for today. And you know, I mean, the pandemic has really brought home to me just how short life is. I'm getting quite a bit older now. I'm closer to 70 than I want to admit. And I really like the tagline: prepare for tomorrow, live for today, and be mindful. I think that's a really good tagline. This is an incredibly beautiful island. It's in the Gulf, you know, off of the coast of between Victoria and Vancouver. And it's just an amazing place, and it's all about off-grid living. So it is for people who want to be safe, but it's also for people who want to be independent. There are 15 unbelievable lots available for sale. You can kind of see it on the screen here. It's a little hard to see where the lots are, but there are 15 lots. And the architect who did the lotting did a really good job. You know, I see a lot of these subdivisions, you know, rural lot subdivisions, and many of them are not very efficient and not very effective, but this is really great. And there are 15 spectacular 10-acre lots. 10 acres is about 4 hectares. So if you're thinking metric, it's 4 hectares, 10 acres. And just by comparison, you know, they always talk about a suburban lot being a quarter of an acre, which is about 10,000 square feet, but most lots are half of that, so about an eighth of an acre. So to give you some perspective, 10 acres is quite a bit. And the reason I put this particular photograph in here for Michael and the group is that you can see it's heavily forested. And I think that's really important. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the site plan in a minute. So you can see that, oh, I should go back, excuse me guys. I should go back. There are 15 lots, as I said, but 2 have been spoken for, have been sold, and 2 are shared. They're going to be common to all shareholders in this group, and there are 11 that are available for sale. And Michael hopes to sell them out between now and sometime in middle of March. And this is a little bit easier to read, so you can see all the lotting here. And if you're interested in getting a lot, Mike or anybody else on the call, Michael is the person to talk to. Michael Ruge is the person to talk to. He is really the founder and the community manager. He is the creative genius behind this project and really knows this island better than anybody else. But there are 2 lots that are common property. This is one of them where there is a wetlands, and that is very important to this project because a wetland and ponds are, you know, not only part of the natural ecosystem, they're a very important part of fish habitat. And I've been building ponds, just so you guys know, for a long time. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. As Michael said, this island, Safe Island, is not far from Nanaimo, which is on Vancouver Island. So it's about 5 minutes from the property to the ferry, and then it's about 1 hour on the ferry to get to, I was going to call it the mainland, but it's not, it's in Vancouver Island, and then it's another hour to get to Nanaimo. So it's remote, but it's accessible too. Lasqueti Island, which we're now calling Safe Island, as you can see, is right in the Strait of Georgia. And here's Victoria on the screen here. If you can see my cursor moving around, here's Bellingham in the United States, and here's Vancouver. It's a fantastic location. And it's significantly protected from all kinds of things, including tsunamis. You can understand why that is. This is a very good place to grow your own food if you're interested in that. When you have 10 acres, you can grow your own food. The Russians proved that, believe that or not. There's a movement in Russia for many years called the Dashnik movement. Dashnik is just a Russian word for gardener, and on 1 hectare, 2.5 acres, you can grow enough food to support a family of 4 and have enough left over to export to your neighbors and friends. So 10 acres is plenty to grow your own food supply. So you've got mild winters, good summers, low humidity, long growing season, a peaceful population. So Mike, they don't have as many guns as our American friends seem to have. You might have a rifle to, you know, shoot if there's a problem with a wild animal. But we, you know, one of my cousins lives in LA on Hermosa Beach, and he has a gun in his glove compartment in his car. He has one in his bedroom. He has one in his kitchen. I mean, he has people, you know, trying to break and enter all the time. So gun ownership is much lower in Canada. And it's not that far from Home Depot and Costco and Wal-Mart. If you're like me and you can't really grow much, everything I seem to grow doesn't do too well. So having a Costco and Walmart and Home Depot within an hour and a half is probably important for somebody like me. The reason I said that the ponds are really important is it's a fish habitat, and this is a pond that I excavated a long time ago now. It's called Dunrobin Lake. It's in Ottawa, so you know, it's frozen half of the year. But here's the lake. It's a sandy bottom lake. I dug it out of a wetland with permission from the Ministry of Natural Resources, and I seeded it with largemouth bass. You can see one of my sons here has caught a largemouth bass. We have about 300 mature fish in there. We fish out about 10 or 15% a year. And the reason I call them my Lady Di fish, so you guys know, is I seeded the lake, unfortunately, on the day that Lady Di died. And so I'll never forget it. You know, as I was transporting my live fish to my lake, which I had just finished digging out, took 17 years, by the way. And so I heard around 10 o'clock at night that Lady Diana had passed away. And I was, you know, wishing my fish, you know, good luck in their new environment. And so they're my Lady Di fish. So I think having wetlands and ponds is a very good thing. Something Michael told me about Safe Island that I didn't know is that the people who live on the island now, I think there's about 400 or 500, Michael, is that right?
Correct. I mean, this year, because of COVID, it's about 750 in the winter. Normally it's 400 or so in the winter and 1200 in the summer.
Yeah, it varies, I guess, but they don't want BC Hydro. They want independence. They are all very independent-minded people, and they do not want BC Hydro. They want to produce their own energy, whether it's through solar or wind energy or some other methodology. They don't want public transportation, so there's no such thing as public transportation here. And in fact, if you want transportation, Michael and Ellie can tell you that you know, you can either use a mountain bike or you can use an e-bike. I actually own an e-bike. I don't know if I ever told you, Michael. I own an e-bike, and it costs me, you know, and Ontario power rates are really high, but it costs me about I think 42 cents to charge it up, and it goes 40 kilometers. It doesn't go very fast, but I actually have a little e-bike, and they're fantastic. So Michael actually drove one, I think, and Ellie too. And how long did it take you to get from this property to the dock?
In one direction, it's 11 minutes, and then the other direction, because it's uphill more, it's about 15 minutes.
Yeah, so if you're super fit, it probably is 11 minutes each way. But if you're like me and Michael, it might take a little longer uphill. But the 300 feet elevation, I think, is important too, because I just don't think a tsunami would get that high. And so I think that's important. The other thing that Michael felt was important to put into this presentation was the fact that, again, there are no public campgrounds. So it's not really accessible to the public. It is accessible by foot passenger ferry, so you get on and off the island by seaplane, or you get on and off the island by foot passenger ferry. So there is no car ferry here, and if you want a car or some kind of vehicle like that on the island, you have to barge it over. So there's a barge available as well to bring bigger things over to the island. Here's a little bit more information about Lasqueti. It's unpaved roads, which again I think is appropriate for what they want to do. The island is about the same size as Manhattan, so you get a sense of how big it is. It's 8 kilometers wide and 22 kilometers long, about 28.4 square miles. So there you go. And here is False Bay, and here is Spring Bay, and there is a one restaurant, I think, on the island. Where is it, Mike?
It's right in False Bay.
Yeah.
You get off of the ferry. There's an 8-room hotel there, and they've got a few 2 guest cabins now that they're converting. They've got a pub. It's the hub of the island, so everybody goes there, you know, and they organize other stuff. And then right across the street is a coffee shop and a wonderful bakery and a little convenience store, and that's it for the whole island for commercial stuff.
Wow. All right, so here's the development potential. This is really cool. One of the things I love about this island, and I'm very envious of you guys. I'm kind of stuck in Ontario. That's one of, you know, just that's the way my life worked out. But you know, the fact that this island, it has a bunch of independent-minded people who are really running their own affairs, means that it's not quite like it is around where I live, that if you want to do any sort of development, you know, you want to move a wall, you know, you have to get 13 or 14 people to sign off on that at City Hall. This is a little bit simpler. So each lot, that if somebody wants to buy a lot, will be, like I said, 10 or more acres, and you can have 2 kitchens. And that's important. It means you can have 2 separate buildings, a main house and a guest house. And I think that's important for a lot of people. One, you might have an extended family. You know, I have 5 kids and 3 little grandsons now. And, you know, you may not want everybody in one house. You might want it in 2 houses. So it's multiple generation friendly. But also, you know, I'm a big believer in being independent myself and not relying on government. You know, the average Canada pension plan payout, I bet you most people don't know what it is, but last year it was $690 a month. It's hard to live on $690 a month. So one of the things that I think Michael and I are on the same wavelength on is that if you did buy a lot here, you would obviously develop it for yourself and your family. But when you're not there, or even when you are there, if you had some additional facilities there that you could rent out, you could probably do pretty well, I think, in terms of getting some independent income from your real estate, things like Airbnb. So you can build your own home and guest home. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can start slow with a cabin, a yurt, a bunkie, an RV, or just a tent if that's what you want to do. As I mentioned earlier, you can grow your own food, produce your own energy, develop your own woodlot. As you know, that you could see from that aerial photograph and the lotting plan that there's a significant tree coverage here, which is good. I think using the ponds for fish habitat, I really believe in that. I happen to like fish. And I really like fish now, Michael, because of the diet my wife put me on. So it's veggies and a little bit of fish and not too much else. And you can create your own community, which I think is really important, probably for most people here. And I wanted to show you this. This is one of my neighbors, and it's kind of I'm going to take a little bit of a detour here, but it won't take very long. It's about rethinking life, and he is a tech guy, and the question he asked me really is, what do you do, Bruce, when your spouse leaves you, your mom passes away, your tech business folds, and all you have is an inherited house? That is an issue that came up, and he was much younger than me. He's in his 40s. And just so everybody knows, and Mike Burns, you would know this, in tech today, you're considered old at 40. And if you're 45 years of age, you're working for a tech company, they go, oh, that guy Bruce, he's getting old. We're going to push him out the door. And in China, by the way, it's 30. After 30, you're considered old. So a lot of people are, not just because of the pandemic, they're rethinking life. What do you do? So this is, in my neighborhood, this is his house that he inherited from his mom. His wife left him. The kids were gone with the spouse. Unfortunately, mom had passed away, and he was sitting there. All of his tech businesses were in disarray. And he said, what am I going to do? And I said, I don't know. What are you going to do? And he said, he's going to sell his house. I said, oh, okay. And it's a nice house, but it's not a palace. And he would get about $650,000 for it. In Vancouver, he'd get about $6.5 million. In the LA, probably even more. But, here in Ottawa, which is a modest little town, he would get $650,000. So I said, okay, you're going to sell your house. Well, what are you going to do then? And he said, well, I guess I'll be able to eat. But how long? If you spend $50,000 a year, you're probably good for 10 or 12 years. And then what do you do? Doesn't own a house, and now he's 55 instead of 45. So what do you do? And so I looked at his backyard. I found this pool, and I think of pools personally as being, energy suckers and chemical deposits and just money pits, And I said to him, I have an idea, and this is his deck. So we're sitting out on his deck in the summertime, and I asked this individual what he was passionate about. And it turned out, just to go back here, what he was passionate about had nothing to do with tech. He was studying to be an energy healer. And so I said, well, that's interesting. So I said to him, why don't you pull out your pool, which is nothing but a money pit, and put in a glamping tent? And so he pioneered, along with one of my clients, actually in Portugal, if you could believe it, in a northern city called Porto. He pioneered, along with my lady client in Portugal, something called urban glamping. We're not talking about urban here on Muscogee Island or Safe Island, but we are in this case. And I said, pull out that stupid, pool, in my opinion, stupid, and put a glamping tent there and invite people to, stay in your backyard, pay $165 a night, and you can provide them with a free energy healing session, or you can charge for it. He said, oh, that's a really good idea. So then what happened was, it turned out one of my former students, I spent 14 years teaching architecture at Carleton University in Ottawa, and one of my former students, architecture students, Anissa Zato, makes these incredible yurts. She manufactures them in, I'm going to forget where, but someplace close to Toronto, and these are fantastic yurts. They're absolutely beautiful, and believe it or not, they're good down to minus 40 degrees, which would not be an issue on Safe Island, but sure as heck is in places like Ottawa. So I said, rather than putting one of these very nice looking glamping tents, put one of these yurts in, and you can go year round. So that's what he did. And you can see some of Anissa's yurts here on the screen. And when you go inside, they're pretty big. I bought two of them a couple of years ago now for property I own, and they're 21 feet in diameter. They cost me $21,000 or $22,000, and you can put them together in no time. And they give you about 330 square feet, which is the size of a micro suite. And you can see on the picture here, here's one of mine, and it's got its own little WC water closet or bathroom, if you prefer, here. So they're really, really sweet. They're easy to erect. And if you don't like the place you put it, you can fold it up literally and put it somewhere else. So you can move it around, although the deck is a little harder to move. Here are just some more shots. And I just wanted to make sure that you saw that these yurts, and by the way, this is a paid advertising for Anissa, except I don't get any money. But she does really great work. And she equips these with a chimney, and you can put a wood stove in there. They're toasty warm, as I said, down to -40. They have these beautiful little skylights. So my wife and I, we've enjoyed it. You go out there in the wintertime or summer, and you can see the stars through the skylight. When it gets too hot, you can pop the lid, and out goes the hot air. And of course, in the wintertime, you keep it buttoned up. Now on ours, Michael, we do not put wood stoves in. I don't trust my guests or my kids with wood stoves. You know, if they've had a few beers or something like that, or smoked a little bit of weed, which is legal now, Mike, at Mike Burns in Canada. You know, so I have little propane stoves in all of my yurts, my two yurts, and so guests won't hurt themselves by starting a fire. And I just wanted to show you the numbers that I'll call him Jason. That's not his real name. Is getting. He's earning about $50,000 a year from his backyard yurt. So that's not too bad. And if you had on Lasqueti Island, you had something similar, maybe you might earn something like that, or maybe a little less, or a little bit more. But there you go. So he's making about $50,000 from it.
Who's going to pay $385 a day?
It's incredible.
To stay in a yurt.
Who is that? I can tell you it is out of control. It is out of control. These prices are ridiculous. My wife and I own a building in Belleville, and for a 2-bedroom Airbnb, we're getting $400 a night. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, whatever the numbers are what the numbers are. All right. So one of the things that I really think is important for everybody on the call, and this is sort of the stuff that I do in coaching, is to find your why. And it took me, just so everybody knows, 61 years to find my why. And I didn't find it on my own. I found it through, I actually hired a life coach, and she helped me find it. And my why is to do a little bit of coaching, because I like doing that. And that's my why. But his why was to be an energy healer. And he wanted to develop his own personal business for life, which I think is really important. So it's really important, in my opinion, to, as you get older, or even as a young person, to have a personal business for life, one you own and control, and that nobody can fire you from because you own it, and to have some real estate. And I also said to him, you've got to wind down your tech businesses, stop losing money. He did refinance. I helped him with this, his principal residence, and he took out $400,000 tax-free, but he kept the ownership of it. Thank God he did. And then you want to animate your property. Animation is a word I use, not Disney animation. It's a word I use to add new revenue streams to a property. And I wanted him to be able to stay in the family home and generate some income and become part of a movement. This is not my term. Fee hash is kind of an awkward term. It's an acronym for every home a job. So I really recommend strongly that you go in that direction. And he would improve his neighborhood and community. He would, because we have additional services now available. And he could live and breathe again. All right, enough of that. Here's another quick example I want to give. This was an Indigenous person that I coach, quite elderly, and a younger man as well, also Indigenous. And this is a more along the lines, I think, of what might be possible in Lasqueti. Anyway, this was an older gentleman who came to me for some coaching with his young disciple, I guess. And I went through the same process. I said, well, let's find your why. And his why was very clear. It was sweat lodge training. And he was originally I think from Saskatchewan, and in his mid-40s, I think he's now in his 80s, but in his mid-40s, he was very sick and he went back to the reservation, and the elders at the reservation put him in a sweat lodge for I think 3 days or something like that. And they said to him, "You're eating all the white man's food, which is very processed, most of it, and has a lot of poisons. You've got to sweat those poisons out, and you've got to go back to a diet that's more in line with what 30,000 years of indigenous persons in Canada have been eating, you know, nuts and berries and meat and, you know, things that are not processed." So he was very passionate about this training. And I said, wow, you know, he has this piece of land. This is the only thing he owned. He had this piece of land, which actually I helped him to buy 20 years ago. And I said, why don't you set up a sweat lodge and start training white folks? White folks will pay for this. And he told me, that's a great idea, Bruce, except sweat lodge training, according to ancient lore, must be free. I said, well, so, you know, I mean, being a white fellow like me, I think about charging, right, Michael? You know, we charge for everything, right? So anyway, so it's a beautiful piece of land. It's about, it's not 10 acres, it's probably 4 or 5 acres, maybe a little bigger than that. It's got a beautiful pond, and here's his wood supply, which he uses for his sweat lodge. This is a shot of a pond. And by the way, Michael, I dug that pond with a shovel. Not with a shovel like that, with a diesel electric shovel. And it's about an acre. Beautiful, beautiful pond. And we have largemouth bass in there too. So sweat lodge training has to be free. So I said to him, well, I have an idea. What if you put 8 yurts around the pond and you charge people to stay, you know, glamping, to stay in these yurts, and then you gave them free sweat lodge training? Aha, that was something that they could do, and it was consistent with their beliefs. So here's another, this is unbelievable. And it's been going strong now for a number of years, and it really saved the day. They've been grossing over $300,000 a year from the property. That is pretty, wow, really impressive.
That's great.
That is you know, I mean, he was in real, and by the way, this individual is a famous Canadian. I won't mention his name because that wouldn't be fair, but certainly if I were to tell you his name, many of you would have heard of him. He's very, very well known, but he had fallen on hard times, and it can happen to anybody. You know, when I was in my mid-50s, the Ottawa Senators, of which I'm the founder, went bankrupt. And as Mike Burns knows, and Michael Ruge knows, I had to restart my career as well. So it can happen to anybody. And certainly I have a lot of sympathy with it. This is a picture I put in here as well. It's just a bit of a learning opportunity. This is a good friend of mine. He's an American architect who was headquartered in London, England. Unfortunately, he passed away at age 65. He was a wonderful man. And he told me something that I think is really important, and it's part of this webinar. Eric told me that leisure is the new infrastructure. And Eric was the kind of guy, he was an architect, as I said, and he was a little bit like Marshall McLuhan, if you know who he was. He was a very famous Canadian professor. And I had a great opportunity to listen to him in the 1970s when he was lecturing in Montreal at McGill University. And Marshall McLuhan would say things like, the medium is the message. He coined the term global village. He saw the internet before there was an internet, or at least before there was a public internet. And he's, you know, you knew when you listened to Marshall McLuhan that you were in the presence of a greatness, but you had no idea what he was saying. I had no idea. I listened to him, but I had no concept of what he was saying. And then, of course, 50 years later, we all go, oh, aha, the global village, the internet, and all the rest of it. Eric was a lot like that. And what he meant by leisure is the new infrastructure is that investment in leisure and learning is really where it's at today for certainly for modern economies. People want to invest in experiences and they want to learn new things. And something like the sweat lodge or energy healing or things like that are really, really important. So if I was living on a skeety island, Michael, I would probably have a bunch of these yurts there too. And you could come there and I would probably, you know, try and teach and coach a little bit too. So leisure and learning is the new infrastructure. This is I hope I can play this for you. This is a couple minutes of video that I think you took, Michael, and you're going to comment on this, not me.
Okay, so while that is loading and coming up, just a few things. This area that we're going over is the property. There's some higher areas where you can see the ocean, and then there's the wetland area. So if you're going to be doing a lot of farming and homesteading and living there, you want closer to the wetlands. If you're just going to be there for the occasional vacation, then you may want the higher area. There's an existing cabin on one of the lots. It's to understand the island too, it's a community within a community. All the neighbors are self-sufficient. There's no such thing as a power failure there, ever. Everybody has their own solar. Some people have backup generators, but you never get a power bill, ever, which is great. There's no crime, none whatsoever. There's no police, there's no need for it. People let their kids go out. People leave their keys in the car all the time. Our cabin that was built 11 years ago, and they didn't even put locks on the doors, just passage set. And they moved out 3 years ago, and they left a Honda generator, a $3,000 generator, etc. Everything's still there. It's just wonderful to live that way. The area that we have here is just over 7.3 million square feet. So there's lots of room for everybody to be away from everyone else if they want. And one of the great things about it, it's an anomaly in North America. There's no building permits required of any kind.
Wow.
Yeah. When I confirmed this with the government officials in Victoria, they said, we haven't sent an inspector to Lasqueti ever. And I said, how long have you worked there? She said, 20 years. Right? Just it's in that nice area, right? That you can just do what you want and everybody has a good time.
I think that's really important, Michael. It's an incredible opportunity to go to a place that you have a like-minded people and do something really, really special with your life instead of just living in LA traffic or Toronto traffic or wherever you might be located. This is a little bit about the commercial side of things, and if I mess it up, Michael will jump in because this is his deal, not mine, but I'm doing my best here. So what he's going to do, and what he's decided to do is there's going to be total of 15 shares in a corporation, just 15 of them, of which Michael will retain 2. But I asked Michael, are your shares going to be the same as everybody else's shares? And he said, absolutely yes. So it's not the dictatorship of Michael Ruge. It's everybody has a say in this company. So it's 15 shares and all are treated alike. 1 vote per share, that's it. It's a single non-dividable common share in the corporation. So you cannot now subdivide your share. So if you have 5 kids like I do, I don't know what you do with it, but you've got 1 share and you can't subdivide it. If you would like to reserve a lot, you can. It goes into a trust account. It's fully refundable. It's $5,000. And then you can work through your conditions over a period of 10 business days, which is 2 weeks, basically. And then if you are happy with what you learned from Michael and his group, the deposit becomes non-refundable. And then on closing, there's another $180,000. These are Canadian dollars, Mike Burns. So that's about 185 cents in US dollars. So I'm kidding, of course. 185,000 Canadian dollars is probably about—
I only deal in Bitcoin, so it's okay.
How much is it, Mike?
I only deal in Bitcoin.
Oh, in Bitcoin. Okay. Well, maybe Michael, you're going to get some, Michael Ruge, you're going to get some Bitcoin. But anyway, 185. And by the way, if you own Bitcoin, holy smokes, is it done well. So 185,000 Canadian dollars, it's not a lot of money. You know, I live in a very modest neighborhood in a small town in the east, and lots here are going, undeveloped lots that are not that big, are going for $600,000. It's ridiculous. And then you have to, of course, build a house. And in terms of building permits, look out. It takes a long time to get a building permit here in Ottawa, Michael Ruge. So you get free access to a shared tool library. So there's tools that are shared, vehicles, a sailboat, a canoe, a kayak, and what else we got here? A mooring buoy, a pickup truck, a 4x4 Kubota tractor, a non-computerized diesels, and you get that for, I think, 12 months after completion. And then after that, I think Michael will introduce some kind of a user fee, just because you've got to keep up, machinery needs to be updated and replaced from time to time. There will be a portable sawmill available if you want to turn your trees on your lawn into a cabin or a building of some sort. This is easy, cost-saving, and convenient for owners, so no need to buy everything individually. I think that's really important. It's all about sharing, and I think that's really important. In addition to that, Michael is prepared if you guys are too busy. Some of you might be too busy to put together a starter package of your own. He's prepared to do that for you. He and Ellie, his spouse, are very, they're can-do kind of people. I know that. So for $99,000 plus GST, they'll give you an insulated year-round yurt, a raised deck, a water tank, some solar panels, an inverter kit to make it a usable current, and a Honda generator. If you don't want to do it yourself, they'll do it for you. So set it up so that when you come to your lot, it'll be ready for you. Here's a client of mine, and I just wanted to say, Zena said on the chat box, and you all can see it if you want, is she knows of a glamping site on Haida Gwaii that charges $200 a night. So the numbers that you see for glamping are really off the charts. This is a really cool business run by John Lochner and his wife. It's called cabinscape.com. And they built these incredibly beautiful, but tiny bunkies. They're only 165 square feet. That's the biggest one. And many of them are smaller. And again, they're renting them at ridiculous prices all across, in this case, it's an Ontario company, and they're literally in the middle of nowhere, and they were 95% occupied this winter. That's incredible. I couldn't believe it. I thought, obviously in summer he'd get very good uptake, but it's been a year-round thing. People are just desperate to get out. Here's another one. This is Bunkie Life.
Zoom with
Sorry about that. There's a little bit of background noise there. This is Bunkie Life. These guys are less expensive. You can get one of their bunkies. And Michael Ruge, these are so small that you can, even in Ontario, you can put them up without a building permit, because believe it or not, that footprint of, if you can see my cursor running around, is about 9 square meters, about 100 square feet. So you can build that thing on your property without a building permit. And these are not that expensive. They're about $11,000. They come in, knockdown kits, and you just put them up yourself. So these are really, really good quality, and they're $11,000. Or you can choose to build a log home. Michael, do you want to comment on the log home builder that you talked to?
Sure. There's a semi-retired log home builder that moved to the island years ago, and he still has all his equipment. He used to build the ones like you see in the top left, the big McMansions, I call them. And there are some of those on the island, and then he makes smaller ones as well. And he's got he's been doing it for 35 years. He really knows his stuff. So he will go take down the trees on your place. If you want to keep your trees, then he charges a little more and gets them, but he'll cut them and has nice woodwork, and then you build from there. People, because of the climate, they live outside a lot. So you put a nice covered porch around it. A lot of people even put outdoor kitchens and things like that, because you can just live that way there. It's wonderful.
So Michael, we got a couple of questions for you. Is there a river on the island?
There's a river right on the property, going down to the wetlands, and there are different rivers throughout on the island. So
I did see, when you looked at your drone footage, I saw some moving water. I guess you got a glimpse at least of the river, right?
Yeah.
And we have another one, another question. Is it okay if somebody brings his or her horse?
Absolutely. There are horses on the island. There are people that there are sheep, goats, cows, Some people, raise them. There's even somebody that grows a couple of cows at a time and then sells it to the neighbors when it's time.
Okay, so I just want to share my screen one more time. We're almost done, you guys, and thanks for sticking around. I'll just share one more thing here. Oh, another question for you, Michael. Are there any oceanfront lots?
No, on purpose, we didn't want anything at the ocean, tsunami, other things or whatever. So we're, you live at a place like this. You vacation if you're only there for a few days at oceanfront. But the pub is right on the ocean. It's beautiful there, and that's the hub. So when you need more salt air in your lungs, you just go to the pub.
And I think there's some beaches, aren't there?
Oh yeah, there are public beaches throughout, and yeah, they're quite popular.
When my wife and I went to Crete, I was writing a book, and I went and spent 6 weeks in Crete to finish the book. I purposely went up into the mountains, Michael. I didn't want to stay, on the ocean or in the, those all-inclusive places, which usually you get big, chubby Americans there getting drunk till 3 o'clock in the morning and puking in front of your door. So I went up into the mountains to a tiny village of 50 people. And, it was probably the best 6 weeks of my life. All right, so that was a question. Then we've got a couple other. Mike Burns asks, what's the weather and average rainfall?
I should know those off the top of my head. I can't remember them. I do know it's the warmest island in Canada. Because of the ocean, it doesn't get crazy hot in the summer, but it also doesn't get crazy cold in the winter.
So Mike Burns, you're going to see on the next slide Michael Ruge's contact information, and if you don't mind, you could reach out to him with any other questions. But we do have another question from somebody. Is there a boat dock? You mentioned something about that, I think, in the presentation, Michael.
Yeah, the government dock, you can go and tie up to that. But what we've done that is owned by the 15 of us, whoever has a place, is we have permanent buoys in the bay. So the buoy says Safe Island on it. Only Safe Island can tie up to it, and that's included.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for this, Michael. So you can see Michael Ruge, he always signs, this is not new, he always signs his emails piece. He's the community manager and the founder of Safe Island. There's his BC phone number, 250-466-5366. And you can text him 24/7. I'm telling you, he'll always answer. And it's michael@ruge.ca. That's his email address. And you can see the URL for Safe Island is safeisland.ca. So it's branded Canadian. So I want to thank everybody for coming today. We promised to get you out here in 50 minutes. We're now at 46 minutes past the hour. So we've got another 4 minutes to go. Something that Michael wanted to make sure you all knew, that this is a presentation about an opportunity to have an amazing investment, I think, and something that will be very special for you and your family, and hopefully for a few generations. So it's not just you guys, but it's your children and grandchildren too, I hope. But you have to do your own due diligence, and he wanted to put this disclaimer in here. I probably wouldn't have put it in, Michael, but you insisted on it, so I put it in, of course, because you asked me to. And this is the last comment I'm going to make, and then we'll all say goodbye. And again, thanks for staying with us. Over Christmas, I reread The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne. And you can see down here, and if you want to reach out to me, I should give you my email address too. I have a new email address, Mike Burns and everybody. I should have put it in here, but I didn't. It's bruce@brucemfirestone.com. So it's bruce@brucemfirestone.com. Firestone.com. You have to put the M in there or I won't get it. I had to change my email address. I wanted to brand myself as myself, so that's what I did. So Bruce at brucemfirestone.com. And because the book is, well, 150 years old, it's out of a copyright, and so I can provide you with a copy of it. It's a wonderful book. But the reason I wanted to bring it up today with Michael Ruge's permission is that when I reread it, it blew my mind. It's about 5 Union soldiers who are captured by the Confederate Army in the U.S. Civil War. So, you know, around 1864 or 1865, and they escape in a balloon. And of course, there's a big storm that comes up and it sweeps them thousands of miles into the Pacific, somewhere in the Pacific, and they land on a mysterious island. But the reason I wanted to bring it up here is that if you reach out to me, I'll give you this link. Don't try and copy that Dropbox link, but I'll send it to you, and put it on your tablet. If you're interested in Lasqueti Island and Safe Island, you should reread it. I really mean it. These 5 men land on this island with nothing. I mean, even their balloon is gone, and they don't. I don't think they certainly don't have any matches. They don't have a knife. They have nothing. But these 5 individuals, an engineer and 4 others, know things about metallurgy, boat building, sailing, navigating, agronomy, astronomy, hunting, fishing, construction, animal husbandry, pottery, chemistry, battery making, electricity. Who knew? Telegraphy, soldering, and much more. It was unbelievable, and just hundreds of pages of how they developed from nothing a civilization on the island, and they eventually escaped from the island. And I compared that to an episode of Survivor. If you know the television series Survivor, in the first year or 2, I used to watch it with my kids when they were younger. They liked it, and I watched it with them. I compared it to these 2 tribes that were stranded, you know, on an island, and they knew for 8 months that they were going to be contestants on the show. And for 2 weeks, no, sorry, that's wrong. For about a week, each tribe is trying to make fire. They're trying to make some kind of a fire, you know, rubbing 2 sticks together, looking for a flint, whatever. And in a week of trying, not one of these guys, and there were like 8 or 10 people on each tribe, so maybe 20 human beings, modern human beings, not one of them could make fire successfully. And finally, you know, the guy who's the host of the show brought each of the tribes a box of matches. It was embarrassing. And I compared modern humans to these 5 northern soldiers who were stranded on this island and what they were able to do. So modern human beings, I think, have a challenge ahead of them, not just because of the pandemic, but just in general speaking, you know, to you know, prepare for tomorrow, but live for today. So I want to thank everybody very much. Michael, Mike Burns, everybody, it's great to see you. Jason, of course, people I know, Ellie, Kevin, Zena, for your comment. You bailed me out there. So everybody, thank you again. And if you have any questions, remember, it's michael@ruge.ca. Bye,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Bruce.
Bruce. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Thank you.
Let's catch up sometime, Bruce. We'll chat soon.
I'd love that.